Hello, I am Christopher Matern, and this is our group presentation. We chose to present on a short story. With that said, let's begin. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, a presentation by Mackenzie Ball and myself. So, summary. The Yellow Wallpaper is a semi-autobiographical short story of an intellectual and creative woman who has lost interest in her family and herself shortly after giving birth. John, the woman's husband, and a physician prescribes the rest cure. This treatment does not cure the woman, and a story unfolds that describes the submissive, pet-like obedience of women to dominant male figures of the mid to late 19th century. Mackenzie and I wanted to focus in on this dominant male figure. Thus, accordingly, our next slide will be our thesis. So our thesis is, the dominance and control that John had over his wife contributed greatly to her illness and rapid deterioration. So then, in keeping in line with our thesis, we examined the perspective of genders. Late 19th century, submissiveness of women. The rest cure essentially cuts the woman off from an intellectual stimulation in an attempt to isolate the mind. This absurd cure is not challenged and depicts a society dominated by male authority. Dominance of men. Best depicted by the idea that a woman's brain is not made to be creative and function as an intellectual mind in society. Furthermore, this was actually seen as the cause of the woman's illness, thus the rest cure. Men of the time were oblivious to this absurdity, which proves how the dominance of men played a role. Charlotte Perkins Gilman battled postpartum depression and wrote this story not only to condemn the treatment, but liberate women from this injustice. So I previously mentioned this short story is a semi-autobiographical in nature. In doing some light research, we found that the author went through a similar experience after giving birth, as the author endorsed some of the same emotions, that of hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness. She too was prescribed the rest cure. Without a doubt, Gilman wrote this to exploit the method of treatment, but also to liberate women from the undeserving inequalities of the time. She does this by comparing the husband John and his wife. So then the husband John here. Throughout the story, he is condescending and dismissive when his wife speaks. For example, John takes his wife to a different house. It's an old colonial mansion for her rest cure. There must have been a lot of room, as it's a mansion, but John handpicks the nursery, once used for children, for his wife to stay in. This, in combination with childlike names, he refers to his wife as dear baby and sweet little goose. Both good examples of his condescending actions, and his wife wants him to remodel, and he just adamantly says he sticks to his guns. He's very concrete. He overrides any thought his wife may have and has the final say in every matter. So John's actions and behaviors towards his wife are detrimental. John isn't a bad man. John is a man of bad time and symbolic of society and culture in the mid to late 19th century.
So another main point of our presentation that supports our thesis is the suppression of women in the Yellow Wallpaper. In this story, the woman is being suppressed by her husband, her sister-in-law, and society. In that time period, women were meant to be wives, mothers, and socialites, and really nothing else. They were not meant to be scholars, and they didn't have jobs. So with this mindset, the woman feels she should keep her thoughts and what she really wants to say to herself, so as not to anger her husband. She even hides her journal from her family because that is frowned upon as well. She's basically not allowed to think. So she keeps all of her emotions and thoughts bottled up, which just makes her illness get worse, despite her husband's isolation treatment that is supposed to cure her. So the tone of the story really adds to the feelings of suppression throughout it. The tone of the Yellow Wallpaper is supported by ironies throughout the story. The fact that the very treatment that is supposed to make her better is actually making her condition worse is very ironic. And in fact, this is the main irony that we found that's presented in the story. The tone of the story is also supported by symbols. For instance, the vacation house that they are staying in. They're supposed to be going away from the summer and getting away from the city and just relaxing. And this is supposed to help the woman get better. But in fact, the isolation that the house provides gives her feelings of loneliness and actually deepens her depression. The house is also a starting source of her obsession with the wallpaper. At first, she hates the house and detests the wallpaper, but then she becomes mystified by it, and she doesn't want to leave. Another symbol in the story is the women that the main character sees in the wallpaper. She believes that there are women trapped by the wallpaper, and in order to free them, she must tear the paper off. The trapped women in the wallpaper are really a reflection of how she sees herself. She is just as trapped as they are. She's trapped in the house, she's trapped by her husband, and by society. The whole tone of the story takes on a crazed personality, and is reinforced by the ironies and symbols that are found throughout it. The form of the story also adds to our thesis. The story is written as journal entries from the main character's perspective. As the entries progress, they become more sporadic and crazed. Even the formation of the paragraphs gets shorter and shorter, showing how her thinking process really works. She jumps from one thought to the next without any link between them. The formation of the story shows the woman's internal struggle with how she's being treated and how she is living her life not in the way she wants, but how others want her to live her life. So, in conclusion, the woman in the Yellow Wallpaper increasingly loses her grip on reality throughout the story. And this is due to the fact that her husband keeps her confined to the house, society looked down on women in the 19th century, and she was not allowed to voice her thoughts and opinions. The tone and form of the story support these facts, and that the woman was driven crazy by the very treatment that was supposed to cure her. In the end, her husband's overbearing, dominating nature brings her to her breaking point and leads to her obsession with the Yellow Wallpaper. This has been our presentation, and thank you for watching.